Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Techno Education Academy. In this video lecture we will discuss about radiator. Okay, in a IC engine there are two types of cooling system, air cooling and water cooling. We have already discussed in classification of IC engine. So today we will discuss about working of radiator in engine. So as we know that IC engine will produce the power by the combustion of fuel inside the combustion chamber by converting the chemical energy of fuel into heat energy. So at that time, some of the heat energy it is converted into work, some of the heat energy it is rejected through the silencer. It means that through the exhaust gases, okay, it is carried with the exhaust gases, and this exhaust gases it is reject the heat through the silencer, and remaining energy it is absorbed in the engine body. And we know that the operating temperature range of the IC engine is very high. So whenever this extra heat, if it is not rejected to the atmosphere, so at that time due to the thermal stresses, this piston will expand and it will seize inside the cylinder. Okay, so for that here we are provide proper cooling system which absorb the extra heat from the engine body and it is rejected into the atmosphere. This type of arrangement is called radiator. Okay, so these are the basic component of the radiator. Now we will discuss the working of radiator, how it's work. Okay, so here you can see that the upper tank, okay, it is connected with the top radiator hose, and the lower tank it is connected with the bottom radiator hose. And this top radiator hose and bottom radiator hose, or it means top radiator piping and bottom radiator piping, it is connected with the engine. Okay, and here you can see that this is the bypass connection with the heater core. Okay, and this heater is mounted inside the cabin of the car. Whenever the engine will start, so pump is also begins to flow the coolant from the engine water jacket. Here you can see that some spacing are provided in the engine body. In this spacing the coolant will flow and it will absorb the extra heat from the engine body. So as we know that in a racing car the operating temperature range is up to 2000 degrees Celsius. At this higher temperature, okay, the piston will expand and it will seize inside the cylinder. So for that this water spacings are provided. So through the water spacing the coolant will flow through this spacing or water jacket. It will absorb the extra heat from the engine body and it will reject into the radiator. This type of arrangement is called water cooling system for the engine. So here you can see that the connection of the engine, okay, body with the radiator through these two pipes, top radiator hose and bottom radiator hose, or we can say top radiator piping and bottom radiator piping. So whenever the coolant it will pass through the top radiator hose, so at that time it will pass through the thermostat valve. So this thermostat valve it is work as a regulating valve. It will not allow the flow of coolant through the radiator until the temperature of the coolant is not raised above the engine operating temperature range. Okay, here you can see that the construction of the thermostat valve, okay, it is made with wax. Okay, and this thermostat valve open by the wax inside melting. So whenever the temperature range is above the operating temperature range, at that time this wax is melt and it will allow the flow of the coolant through the radiator. Okay, so it is provided in between the radiator top hose and engine. Okay, and through the upper tank, okay, the coolant it will pass through the radiator core. Okay, and finally it will pass through the lower tank to the bottom radiator hose to the engine. So it is a one type of heat exchanger. Okay, this radiator it is a one type of heat exchanger and it is a cross type heat exchanger. Okay, in this radiator there is a cross flow. Okay, and generally in an automobile this radiator it is mounted on front side of the vehicle, because whenever your vehicle is in motion, okay, at that time, so due to the naturally the flow of air it will strike with the body of the radiator and there is an exchange of heat between the air particles and radiator. Okay, we have already discussed there are three types of heat transfer. convection, conduction and radiation. So this radiator core, it will reject the heat to the surrounding. Okay, and for forced convection, here we are also using fan. Okay, and this fan, it will receive the power from the engine. It is an engine driven fan, and generally it is operated by thermostat switch. Okay, so whenever the temperature it will be increases and the coolant will flow through the radiator, then it will flow the air, okay, on the surface of the radiator. So finally the coolant, it will pass through the lower tank. At that time the temperature is reduces, and this coolant, it will pass again through the engine body, water jacket. It will absorb the heat and it will reject the heat into the radiator. So in this arrangement here you can see that from one side coolant will absorb the heat from the engine body, on another side it will reject the heat to the surrounding. This type of arrangement is called water cooling system for the IC engine. And whenever you start the heater, okay, at that time through the bypass piping, okay, this coolant, it will pass through the heater core, and this heater, it is mounted inside the cabin of the car. Okay, so here you can see that whenever you start the heater, so at that time this coolant, okay, this coolant is already available at high temperature, because it will absorb the heat from the engine body, and the temperature of the engine is already high, so the coolant temperature is also high. So this hot coolant, it will pass through the heater core. Here you can see that the blower is mounted. This blower will suck the air and it will flow through the surface of the heater, and it will increase the temperature of the inside the cabin of the car. So this is the working principle of radiator. So here we are also using the wastage energy, okay, in heater, okay, to increase the temperature of the cabin. Same as you can also use the wastage of energy into the silencer. Okay, in a silencer, you know that, okay, the exhaust gases, okay, it is carried with heat, and this, it is rejected into the atmosphere. Instead of that, it will pass through the turbine. So this exhaust gases, it is available at high temperature and high pressure. Okay, in multi-cylinder engine, this pressure is sufficient to operate these turbine blades, and we know that turbine is an output device. So whatever the output we received from the turbine, we can utilize it to operate the compressor. So this is a free energy. So I have already prepared one video on VGT and supercharger. If you want to clear your fundamental, then you can watch this video. So I hope this information, it will be helpful to you. If you would like to watch this type of more technical videos, then please subscribe our channel and also share with your friends.